All right, we're here with head coach Jay Herkleman for the men's basketball. Jay, how you doing?
I'm great. Season's right around the corner, ready to go.
Yes, sir. Kind of wanted to get together and have a little preseason basketball talk. Going through the fall and everything and all your workouts, how's the team shaping up compared to last year?
It's gone really well. Through the month of September, we kind of put them through a little grind that month and get them into shape and test their physical abilities as well as their mental strength, and they got through that. And then when practice started October 1, I liked what I was seeing out there on the floor, and I could kind of tell in September that things were going to be pretty good as far as our depth. But we started practice and things were looking good, and then we had our first scrimmage down in Dallas, and I was encouraged by a lot of things I saw after just 1 week of practice.
Mm-hmm. Talk about some of the returners. We have T.J. Washington and Malik Keith from last year. Both were second team all-conference. So
both those guys having 2 point guards back that were both all-conference guys really helps.
Mm-hmm.
Just being able to run the show and know what I want out there. And both had good years last year, being an all-conference guy as a freshman in this league with 14 teams now in the conference. It's hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
And they both were also on the all-region tournament team. Malik was the one that hit the shot against Hutch in overtime to beat Hutch for us to get to the national tournament. And he was the MVP of the region tournament. TJ was on the region tournament team. So those experiences helped those guys. Just their confidence and how they go about their business. And both those guys are motivated to have really good years. So those two guys, and then Cedric Rowland is back from last year, and Ced started out the year last year really well. Was at scoring and rebounding, and then after we got back from the Christmas break, just was fighting some injury stuff. Didn't have as good a second semester, but he's been doing well in our scrimmages, and I'm expecting him to have a really nice year also. Devontae Robinson is another one back from last year. Devontae was kind of a role guy for us, and he plays hard and understands what his responsibilities are with the team. And then one other sophomore we've William Jefferson was with us but had to redshirt because of a knee injury, and then he re-injured his knee again this year, but he's going to be back about mid-November, and I'm really happy for him. I'm excited. He played for us quite a bit his freshman year.
Gotcha.
And so now this will be 2 years from that, and so looking forward to getting him out on the floor. And then one more I wanted to mention, a transfer sophomore, Joshua Hill, from he was at Wallace State in Alabama last year. And it's good to have him. He's a hard-playing dude. I mean, just a blue-collar, plays his tail off. I love him. He's a great kid and plays hard. So those are our sophomores we've got this year.
Now, with all those guys returning and having success in the past, how does that help with some of the newcomers, coming into your program for the first time, as well as can you talk a little bit about those newcomers?
Well, the one thing, when I tell them how things are in the program, and I'm maybe kind of demanding where some of these new guys are kind of wide-eyed, I have the luxury of TJ and Malik and Ced and those guys, Bink, William Jefferson, telling those guys, this is the way it is, and we do have high expectations. We do put demands on them. We've won a lot of championships here, and in order to do that, you have to have those things. You have to have demands. You have to play a certain way, and you have to have good discipline. And for some of the guys, when they first get in, it's a little bit of a shock to them. But having those guys tell them this works this way, and so then it reinforces what I'm telling them. So that's definitely a valuable deal.
Nice. It's kind of like these high schoolers are coming in where their world's lollipops and gumdrops, and then they're kind of rushed into a lot of expectations.
Yeah, they were all the man on their team. Where they were at. That's why we recruited them. I mean, they were obviously good,
right?
But you get to college and everybody's good. And the people you're going to play against, they're all trying to win. And it's just again, because of the success we've had. When you put the Coffeyville jersey on, people are going to play harder against us.
Right.
That's just the way it is. I mean, they're going to play harder against us. They're going to play harder against Hutch. Teams are going to get up and motivated to play those two teams. Now, some teams, they'll play them midweek in January, February, and they're like, wow, we got to play these guys. But when they play Coffeyville and Hutch, it ain't ever like that.
Right.
And so trying to prepare our guys for those kind of challenges and getting them mentally tough to understand, but still they don't understand until they get those experiences.
Right, until they get thrown into that fire.
Yeah.
You've mentioned getting guys prepared. Has your method of doing that changed? How has that changed over the years, if at all, and especially the last few years?
I don't think I've changed. Our conditioning program in the month of September has been the same for 23 years. It really has. It works.
Yeah, it's legendary in Coffeyville. We hear about it.
It works. It's stuff that a lot of the stuff is stuff that I did when I was a player, so I knew it worked for me. And so when I became the head coach, I started doing it, and it gets them into the way I look at it. September gets them in good enough shape to be able to start practice, and then the month of October gets them in a good enough shape to be able to start playing games. Because game speed is so much different than practice speed. As much as you want to simulate that in practice, it's hard because of the anxiety, the nerves, the stuff that happens in a game. Plus, you get a certain comfort level in practice because you know all the calls, you know what the other team's going to do. And but when you're in a game against somebody else, it's different. So, but that's the way we approach things, and it's been successful that way. So I really haven't changed much. People always are saying kids have really changed over the years, and yeah, that's probably true. But we haven't changed the way we go about our stuff.
Well, the old school stuff always works. I kind of get enthralled with everything that this new age stuff. You can't be hard on a kid because they're not built that way anymore. And I've always believed that if you're that way and they understand that this is the way that this coach or this boss or whatever is, then they expect that. Then they're more accustomed to that.
There's no doubt. It's just a matter of the expectations you put on them and how much discipline are you going to have, and and some of my players, when they have to run for disciplinary reasons, the thing that a couple, and Malik being one of those guys, and he'd laugh about, sometimes, I'd run Jordan Taylor, who was considered one of our better players last year, Tedrick Wolf, and Malik would sit over there and say, "Coach don't care."
Right.
If you mess up, you're the guy that's going to run. And so, having that mentality where they're all going to be treated fairly, but they're going to be treated equal. It definitely helps your team because they all know what the expectations are.
Right.
And, the old school mentality stuff, I'm a big Alabama football fan, been for years. And, all the new wave stuff
that
goes.
So you're not a bandwagoner?
No, I'm not. I've been since I was a little kid. But you watch all the new wave stuff in college football, and then you watch Alabama, and they're blue collar, and they're just physical, and they beat you. And then in the college basketball, the people that have great success year in and year out, Bill Self does, and they play with two forwards most of the time, and they do their high-low stuff, and they're pounding inside. And North Carolina, who won the national championship last year, they're playing with two big forwards in there, and a lot of people want to do what Golden State does.
Right.
And now that's the trend now in college basketball. We're going to play like Golden State. Well, my thought is you better have Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Thompson. If you want to play like them, there's a reason those guys are successful. They're really good players.
Right.
And I don't know. So I have a little more old school mentality about things, and it works for us.
I mean, you can look at you mentioned all those coaches, and you can look at them and have their stability and how they've coached and stuck with their program. I mean, Coach K, at Duke and all those other guys. I really admire Nick Saban, even though I'm a Florida State fan. It's Nick Saban and Urban Meyer and those guys who have stayed consistent with who they are and haven't folded with this new age beliefs.
Change with the times.
Right.
Yeah.
And they've stayed fast, and I mean, all those guys are considered the greatest coaches of all time
For a long time. Longevity. Yeah.
You and I kind of talked last week about your journey, throughout the coaching, and I kind of want to jump on that for a minute. 95 was your first year here, and the year before the team had won 3 games, and since you've been the head coach, you guys haven't had a year yet to where you haven't won any less than 19 games. So, kind of how was it for you to take over a program that was, I don't want to say in the dumps, but really far down, a far cry from where you are now? How was it from taking over and then getting it into where it is now?
Well, I just, that first year that I came in back in '95, I basically cleaned the house, which was really tough back then because then we were dealing with the league rules were 5 out-of-state players, and the rest of them had to be Kansas kids. And I got the job in late March and was not happy with the kids that were in the program, so eliminated all of them and started out fresh in March trying to find some fellas.
Right.
We ended up, getting some good Kansas kids, not great, but just tough kids. And then we were fortunate. We hit on a bunch of out-of-state guys, Shadrach Jenkins and Halim Abdullah and Donnell Mitchell, and people who've been around the program for a long time will remember those guys. But my mentality back then is very similar to now. This is the way we're going to do things, and we're going to be tough. And I remember one of the questions in my interview process, because the previous coach had played a lot of zone, and he said, "Well, we played zone," and they said, "Well, we just can't get these kids to guard." And so they were asking me, what's your style that you're going to play? And I said, we're going to play a lot of man-to-man, and this is how we're going to do it. And they said, well, how are you going to get those kids to do it? And I said, well, they won't know they can't.
Right.
Was my answer. And I just didn't, I thought, what do you mean? How are they not going to do it? So from then and in that first year, we won 26 games and we won the conference, made it to the region championship game, got beat by a very good Butler team who finished 3rd in the nation that year. And so we just since then have kept it rolling. Been fortunate. We've had really good players. Obviously, that helps your coaching along the way.
Makes it a lot easier.
I've had good assistant coaches that have helped get those players in here. But just kind of maintaining through the years, having my philosophy and not changing through the years. One thing I have changed, we press more now than we used to. When I first got here, we didn't have the depth to be able to do that, but now we do. And so we press more, and I like that. I like the faster pace. But still, when we get in the half court, it's still a lot of the same rules that we played back when I first started.
Nice. What, looking at the conference and where we were picked, nationally, right now we're preseason number 14, predicted to be second in the conference. How do you take that into your practices, saying, I mean, these are good accolades, but we don't want to be second. We don't want to be 14th in the nation. We want it. So how do you get guys from not being complacent?
Well, when they saw the number 14 ranking, they were excited about it. And I said, that's good. And they're bouncing around. I said, understand, we've been in the top 10 in the preseason a whole bunch, fellas.
Right.
So that kind of brought them down real quick. And then, with the conference pick, Hutch deserves to be number one. They won the conference by a landslide last year, and they won the national championship. So they should be the number one team. And we got up there based on how obviously we beat Hutch twice last year, won the region, but having TJ and Malik back and Cedric back, I mean, there's respect there. And I think that's a good place for us to start. I mean, it's one, it's showing respect for the program, but two, I mean, you still got to do your job. You
Right.
still got to go out there and work at it. And the national ranking, I looked at that, and every team that's in front of us, I said, yep, they're good. And I said, if you want to move up there, you're just going to have to go to work every night and take care of your business and take one game at a time and keep marching through it. And so it lasted for the day, and they saw it, and then we moved on.
They threw water on that fire.
Yeah, they were, yeah.
What's one way that you keep or you get team camaraderie? I know a couple years ago they were talking about how Kansas took their guys white water rafting and stuff like that. Are you doing anything like that, or what do you do to?
No, we don't. Of course, we don't have the luxury of having the funds that Kansas has, and there's different coaches that do different things. I don't. In the evening time, the guys have their time, but we do have functions together. We have opportunities where we get together as a team with boosters and things like that for team meals and things, and that brings us together off the floor. But there's not a lot of those. I've never been one of them kind of guys, because those things last, in my opinion, for about 24 hours, and then basically, it's like being a big rah-rah coach. I'm not a big rah-rah coach because there's 30 games.
Right.
It's not like football where there's one a week. Like when we get started, it's Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, and they just keep coming.
Right.
And you can't get too high and you can't get too low. You just got to be consistent throughout it. And so that kind of stuff, it's good for the moment and stuff, and good to talk about. But the reality is you got to get out there on the floor and be tough enough to beat the opponent.
Right.
Yeah.
What has it been like? You mentioned having kind of playing an older school style, and you mentioned Cedric coming back as a big. How are your bigs looking this year and early in the season? Because I think the norm, a lot of people talk about, it takes bigs a little bit longer to get accustomed to a new level. How have they looked?
I like our forwards. We have good size. We don't have, last couple of years, we've had 7-footers. We had Mo Ahmed 2 years ago, and he's 7'2", and that didn't work out. And then last year we had Trey Kalina, and Trey was fine. I mean, he ended up getting to a nice school from here. He's at North Carolina, Wilmington, and he did what he could do, but it just wasn't as mobile. They weren't as mobile and as active as I needed our forwards to be. And this year we've got more of that. We've got Cedric, who's 6'7", 230, and then, as I mentioned, Joshua Hill. He's not as big. He's 6'4". I don't know if he's 6'5", but he's strong. He's built like a linebacker, and he's tough. And then we've got Keon Queen, who is a 6'8", 6'9", slender, athletic guy that I think is really going to keep getting better and better for us. He's from out in Maryland. And then A.J. Webster is a 6'8" forward out of Kansas City, out of Shawnee Mission South High School. Great body, 6'8". He's probably 230. And Jackson Miller is another one that he's from Western Kansas, and his adjustment is that he played 1A basketball. Jackson's 6'7", got a nice body, he's athletic, but just the adjustment of playing against the athletes that he's playing against now, he's showing spurts, but it's got to just become more consistent. And then William Jefferson, when he gets back, I mean, I think William's going to be like a Dennis Rodman kind of player. He just has an instinct for rebounding the ball and keeping the ball alive and making energy plays, and so our group together, I think, is really good. I think we're going to be able to score it in the post better than we have the last couple of years. We've got good size, good depth, so we'll be able to rotate guys around. They're going to move better. We've already blocked more shots in the preseason than we have, in a while. And that's encouraging. So, yeah, I like our forwards. Our depth is good. Our size is good. Our talent is good.
And last question for me is, You mentioned your assistants and having good assistants and being able to bring in some of the players that you have because of them. How valuable is it to have someone like Kyle Fisher who's been with you for, how many years? 6 straight years. And how is it? How has that benefited you as a head coach and as the program?
Well, just you're able to have continuity.
Mm-hmm.
Fish does our recruiting. He's great at it.
Mm-hmm.
He grinds it. He works it. He's. I don't have to worry about it, which gives me peace of mind to be able to coach our guys. And that's one of the things that we talk about in recruiting when kids come on campus with their parents is understand if your son comes here, I'm going to be there every day coaching him. A lot of times head coaches may miss a practice going out because they're trying to find the next guy. Mm-hmm. And that's what Fish does. During the season, there's times he misses practice, but because I trust that he does a great job. And so I'm going to be there every day with our guys, and I can focus on our game plans and what we need to do in practice and stuff because I know he's taking care of the recruiting. And been fortunate, over the years. Fish has been with me 6 years. Kyle Campbell was with me 6. He was with me 2 as an RA guy, and then he was 4 as a full-time assistant. He did a great job recruiting, and guys. And now he's a Division I assistant coach at Sam Houston State. Pat Monahan, who used to be in our program years ago, he's assistant coach at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Ryan Hallenthal, who was in our program, went to Boise State, and then he was out in California at Long Beach State. Now he's the head coach at Quincy College and a Division II program. And so our guys, that have been here, got good experience. They did a heck of a job while they were here, and then they move on and are doing great things. And eventually that's going to happen with Fish, too.
Right.
As much as I don't want him to, and I know his wife's got a great job, and she's happy here, and, they got 2 kids, and that's all good. Hopefully we can keep him here as long as possible because he's doing a tremendous job for me.
Well, I'm sure you have a lot of guys or a lot of programs that are at least asking you about him. If he's been having all this success that
he's had opportunities. He's looked at things. He's had interviews. Fortunately, he's always felt like this was still the better thing for him at the time, and so. We'll see what happens, but he's young and eager, and I don't know if he wants to go the 4-year route as assistant coach or try to get a head Division II or junior college job, something along those lines in the future. So we'll see what happens. But him being here and he sees this, it's helping his career.
Right.
Just the success that we have in our program and the people that he gets to meet, and it opens a lot of doors for him.
Awesome.
Yep. Thanks, Coach.
Yeah,
okay.
thank you, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, sir.